Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Today's actually pretty exciting. One of the very first people I met online when I got into coaching, sales, all that was Tiffany and her husband Sid, which is crazy. That was like, I think 6, 7 years ago now,
Been
maybe
a while.
longer. So, like, we've been kind of trying to set this up. And for all of you that don't know, this is Timberly Toombs Cleaver. Did I say his Sid's last name or your last name right? I probably butchered it because I'm horrible at names.
You're good. Tiffany Toombs Clevinger.
There we go. See, I knew I didn't say it right. I said Cleaver. It's because I play video games. But I'm excited about this because about a year ago, I had sit down. We talked about like a lot of different things from a mental health standpoint, men's health, stuff like that. But you have been in the space of helping people for a very long time. In your own words, what is your mission now?
Uh, that's a big one. I haven't actually thought about my mission statement for a while, but if I had to put one together on the spot, I would say we are focused on helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs increase their time freedom and their wealth by getting rid of the mental blocks that are causing them to self-sabotage. So, really helping people who are amazing at what they do, they have a desire to make the world a better place, and they're stuck, right? They know they're not reaching their potential, they're in that frustration, and we help them get out of their own way.
Mm. Why do you think that happens with so many high achievers? Is it because, I mean, I have my ideas, but I want your insight. Is it because they're always people pleasing? Is it because they always have that chip on their shoulder? They're trying to hit the next high without actually regulating and learning where they're at? Or what are your thoughts on that? Because I know a lot of really super amazing people that are not living up to the potential because they have those blocks, which most times I think they don't see.
Yeah, so it's interesting with the high performers, and this is coming from like a overachieving, high performing, people pleasing perfectionist. Um, is that even sometimes like on paper or on social media, it looks like they are reaching their potential. But behind closed doors, there's a lot of things that are going on for people that you don't see. Like I have multiple clients right now who do $100,000 a month, but they are in active self-sabotage. So like public facing, everybody's like, "Oh, I want a business like that person. I want to be like that person. I want to learn from them." But behind the scenes, there's a lot of active self sabotage going on. And I think the reason that it hits high performers so potently is because they have the success, right? And so it's easy to say, well, but you have the success, so clearly you don't have blocks. When I talk to people who are making around like $20,000, $30,000 a month, they're always like, well, but if I got to $100,000 a month, like that process would get rid of my blocks. And I'm like, you think that, but it's actually just going to magnify them. So I think because people are having the outward success, they feel like, well, I should be good. But internally, they know that something's not right. And they see their own behind the scenes reel. And so they know like I'm sabotaging myself in so many different ways and I'm not happy. Dan Henry did a post about this recently. He's has $1 million months, but at the same time, there's like a part of him that felt like it was like rotting from the inside out. And I think it's because as a society we prioritize the status, the wealth,
Mhm.
the like external achievements, but we never check in to be like, hey, are you making $1 million and keeping most of it? Or are you burning through it and trying to get rid of it because you don't feel safe in the excess? Or are you spending $975,000 in ads to get there, right? Like there's so many variables, but we just look at the external success and say, well, they must be good.
Hmm. Well, because that's how people are rated. Like I remember when I was winning President Circles awards and doing super awesome in sales, and I got to the point where I'm like, is this it? Like there has to be something more. That's why I started doing the podcast. So I started doing other stuff because yeah, I could go and make money and I could go and spend money and I could go and make, it doesn't change who you are. How do you help people start to even, especially high achievers, because a lot of us try to be lone wolves, a lot of us try to do it on our own and crash and burn. Do people have to be at a certain point where they raise their hand, or is there a way you can catch them beforehand? Because I know, like even with me, I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to just do this anymore. I've been there, done that, got the rodeo. Alex Sharfton said, if you have fires in your business, you're probably the arsonist. How do you start to get, because we're pretty cocky, we're pretty confident, we're pretty stuck on doing it our way. How do you get people to start to let their guard down?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. Most people won't start until they're at what they feel like is rock bottom, right? Until they are so sick of burning the business down and having to rebuild it. They're so sick of the revenue roller coaster. And it's usually honestly going to be like the money frustrations that cause people to reach out, not realizing that there's like a ton of stuff behind the scenes that we need to fix. So, in my content, I try and point out, sometimes in funny ways, sometimes in very direct and sassy ways, but I want to point out to people like, hey, if you're avoiding something, you're probably beating yourself up thinking, oh, I'm so lazy. I just need to be more disciplined. I need a little bit more David Goggins-ness in my life, right? But it's
Hmm.
actually not that. And like just continuing to push through only exacerbates the problem in the long run because every time you just push through, and I'm not saying that this is where it's kind of a nuanced conversation because I say,
Hmm.
hey, when you're feeling the discomfort or fear, just pushing through is not necessarily the best way. That's going to reinforce to your nervous system that whatever it is you're chasing isn't safe. So then what people hear is, don't push through the fear. And that's not what I'm saying at all. We still have to move through discomfort, but if we have the tools to regulate through it, to become aware of the meaning that we're giving things, right? I have a client now who like 3 times in the last couple weeks has been like so highly triggered. She's just shut down, not been able to focus on her business because of things she sees on social media. And I'm like, so the first thing that we have to do is like recognize the story that you're telling yourself in that moment, right? You
Hmm.
see somebody's post, and instead of just being like, I don't agree, I'm going to keep scrolling, you internalize it and make it mean something about you, right? We
Hmm.
have to become aware of that story. That's step number one. So we take people through what we call the RISE process. So R is about recognizing what is the thing, what's the story that you're telling yourself, what are even the thoughts that you regularly tell yourself, because some people are just so unconscious in their thinking they don't even know what they're thinking. So we need to become aware of those things. Number two is I. So we have to interrupt and rewire. We have to figure out what are the belief systems, what are the identities, what are the core childhood wounds, what are the nervous system imprints that are at play, because these are the things that are actually in the driver's seat of your life. And ironically, the people who come to me and say, I'm the least emotional person you've ever met in business are the ones who are being hijacked the most. But
Hmm.
they just have so little self awareness, they don't realize it. So we need to interrupt that and rewire it. And then S is for stabilization. We need a period where you are just hyper focused on who you're becoming, that next version of you, and allow that new version to become the norm. Allow your nervous system to feel safe in you being that person. And then E is expand and engage. So, what are some lifestyle habits that we can put in sleep, diet, recovery, all of those things to help keep you on your progressional path, to keep you growing without hijack, without self sabotage? So, but it really starts with like recognizing, like,
Hmm.
hey, you're not procrastinating because you're lazy. You're not like you keep burning out because you're not regulating through the discomfort, right? You're burning out not because a lot of times people burn out not necessarily because they're doing too much, but they're either doing too much of the wrong things or they're spending so much time in this inner battle of like the highly motivated and driven part that's like, just go out and freaking do it. And then the part that's like, I'm not worthy, I'm an imposter, people will laugh at me, what if I
Hmm.
fail? And those two parts are always at odds, which burns so much energy and you end up in burnout.
Yeah. No, and I've seen that progression in my life when I was going through and my default was always to attack because I knew if I attacked and I could get through and I could get the award, I could get the cookie, whatever the stupid thing was. And over the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years, I've had to learn to regulate, to take time for myself. Like even this week, I've been going and running and doing stuff. So I played video games for 3 hours without feeling guilty. 2 years ago, that would not have happened because I would have felt so guilty just doing something stupid for me, not stupid, but like just in my head, not anything productive, but just something
Yeah.
that worked for me. Or like I have to go on walks. I know that if I'm sitting in my office, I maybe go an hour and a half without. After that, it's 108 here in Phoenix. I still will walk because I know I need that for my body, but it took a long time because again, I did like a lot of high achievers. I fell into the Goggins thing or the 100% ownership. And if I just do it right, but there's sometimes you have to just be. And that inner battle, this is the thing I think, especially, and I do more with men. So that's just kind of the demographic with it, that men seem to have a problem with. They're like, they're not kind to themselves. This is my thought process with it. A lot of the men I deal with just beat themselves up. Well, you're an idiot. You didn't do this right. And they do that internal battle. How do you help people like because I know we talked about like the pattern interrupt, but can we go a little bit deeper in that? Because you can have awareness, but it doesn't mean you made any change. And then you said you got to the second part, the I statements. And I'm assuming that's like more from what I'm hearing, pattern interrupting or different modalities that you can do. How do people start to do that? I mean, definitely reaching out to you and Sid would get them to be able to do that. But for those
Yeah.
listening, just some practical tips that they can maybe start doing.
Yeah. So what we teach is so it actually starts the pattern interrupt kind of starts in the R phase in that recognize, right? So like what is the story that I'm telling myself right now? That in itself can be an interrupt in the beginning. So you see something, you feel that old familiar trigger, resentment, frustration, anger, whatever it is, the self-doubt, the shame, that self-talk coming up, right? Like what is the meaning that I'm giving myself here? And this really comes back to like the quality of our questions determines the quality of our life. And most people, I mean, and fair enough because we never learn these tools, is they don't know how to A, observe their thoughts and then B, like think about their thinking. So this is the very first thing that we start with people is what's the story that I'm telling myself right now? And how do I know that it's true? Like what evidence do I have that it's true? And a lot of people are like, why would I want to prove the limiting belief right? Like, shouldn't we just be focusing on disproving it? Which it's actually that's I understand the logical thinking behind that, but that's actually just going to double down on, but there's so much evidence that it's true
Hmm.
because for so many people, they've been carrying this thought pattern or they've been carrying this meaning for so long. Most people, it goes back to sometime between the ages of 0 and 7, which I know is super cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. Like it's
Hmm.
literal neuroscience, right? So it's a case of you've been carrying it for so long that it feels so big.
Hmm.
And because you've never looked at it, you've never actually questioned it, you've never sat with it, it feels like there would be a million pieces of evidence that you're not good enough, or a million pieces of evidence that you're not true, or that are, that you're a fraud or whatever it is that you're thinking. And so when we actually start, and I get people to write it down, like I want you to write down every single piece of evidence that you have that whatever this meaning you're giving this thing is true.
Hmm.
And most people find, oh, I actually don't have as many as I thought I did.
Hmm.
Or they're all kind of the exact same thing, but just worded in a different way, right? Like I know for me, it was like, well, what if I run out of money? And what if no one buys for me? Well, those are really like the same thing, right?
Hmm.
And then for that list, we'll look at it and say, could anything else be true about this, right? So somebody might have let's use the belief I'm not good enough. Okay, so what evidence do I have to be that'll be true? Well, my ex broke up with me. Okay, so does that mean that you're not good enough? Like, have you ever broken up with somebody for a reason that wasn't that they weren't good enough, right? Were there
Hmm.
other reasons? Or so and so passed me in the hall today and they didn't even acknowledge my presence. Okay. Have you ever been so caught up in your own head or in your own world that you didn't see somebody? It happens to me all the time. My son will be like talking to me, Sid will be talking to me, and I'll be like, I didn't even hear the tone of your voice, never mind anything
Hmm.
that you said, right? And it has nothing to do with your good enoughness or your worthiness. So now we can actually start looking at what the evidence is. Then we can also look at, do I have any evidence that this is not true? What are the things that I have done and done well? Or what are the things I am good at? What are the things other people compliment me on? Because a belief, our system is so black and white. It's either there is evidence or there's not, right? So if you, even if you have a couple things in each column, now all of a sudden we're moving into a gray area. And
Hmm.
then we can start to recognize when this meaning is coming up. And then what we do to interrupt it in the moment is we use a tool called base. So coming back to base. So you breathe. Couple deep breaths. You can do box breathing. You can do physiological sigh. You can just take deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Does not matter. We're just going to intentionally breathe.
Hmm.
A is for anchor. So we're going to really ground into the present moment, right? And then S is sense. So now we're going to look around the room or the space that we're in, and we're going to start naming what we see: water bottle, computer, mouse, right? And then you're going to name three sensations that you can see. That might be feel the chair underneath me. I can feel like the breeze of the air conditioning in the room. I feel a little bit anxious inside my body. I can feel my shirt against my skin. Does not matter what the sensations are. We're just going to name three. What
Hmm.
that does is it pulls our nervous system out of the past wound or out of the future worst case scenario thinking and back into the present moment. And then E is we engage. So, whatever the thing is that we need to do, we're going to break it down into the smallest possible step and we're going to engage with that step. And that allows us to interrupt that trigger in the moment, the old pattern, so that we can decide. So, for example, this morning, you said that you and I have been trying to schedule this for a while. And
Hmm.
my husband's dad has just been diagnosed with cancer. We got some not great news about it yesterday, last night. And then I woke up this morning to find out that one of our clients and friends had passed overnight from his cancer battle.
Hmm.
And I was typing up to you, hey, life's lifing again. I need
Hmm.
to reschedule. And then I was like, wait a second. Is it actually true that I can't get on this call, right? Like this was 6 hours before we were supposed to talk. I was like, I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm
Hmm.
gonna go have a shower. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna get some protein. And if I'm still really feeling like I have no value that I can add to anybody, then I'll reach out, right?
Hmm.
But we don't have anything to do for my father-in-law today. There's nothing we can do.
Hmm.
And there's nothing that we can do for our friend who is passed currently. So my options are I can give in to the familiar comfort of I'm just going to sit and scroll social media to numb myself out, or I can actually do something that has meaning to attach to it, right? That's
Hmm.
going to serve other people, which is what we look to do every day. So, but if I didn't catch myself in the moment and say, wait a second, is this actually like, I know this morning when I had just gotten the news, I didn't feel like showing up, but
Right.
now I'm good, right? But this is what happens is, and this is why so many people get stuck at a revenue ceiling, is they start negotiating with the comfort that they want in the moment. They let
Hmm.
their old patterns kind of talk them out of what they can and can't do, and that's what we need to be able to interrupt.
Yeah. No, that's good. First and foremost, my condolences with your friend.
Thank you.
My mom passed from cancer last November, and my sister like 2.5, 3 years ago. So I understand that feeling. And actually, I had to go through that whole process. I shut my podcast down last November through the end of the year, which I normally do anyway. But then in
Mhm.
January, I'm like, no, I need to start again. And it's hard. It's not easy by any means.
Yeah.
Like, I think I love how you were able to use that as an example. And I think people are like, it almost gives people hope in the fact of this. If Tiffany and Joe can do something like that when it's something that devastating or that strong, then maybe me having a backache or being tired or my kid didn't do what I wanted today, I can start seeing the path out. I think things happen to us for a reason. Like we're
Yeah.
supposed to talk at this time, so that's why it's happening.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that you're willing to do that because, I would have been totally fine with it. Like, hey, totally get it. I've been there, done that. I understand that rodeo. But I think maybe someone's going to listen to this episode and they're going through a dark place and they'll be able to look back and go, well, wait a minute. I can pause and breathe. I can like reflect and do the thing, even though it's not easy by any means.
No, and like to add to that, and I knew that you would be totally understanding and whatnot. And at the same time, like the last 12 months for us, we have had, so I'm currently in the immigration process. We've had some immigration hiccups, which, and then obviously there's a lot of information, misinformation floating around in the US
Hmm.
right now about that. We had a head-on car crash. We lost a house. Like we had a house under contract that we really loved. It fell through. We found another house that we loved, moved. We've had clients go through some very like devastating situations that we supported them through. And we have navigated it by interrupting our patterns because what most people do, and like after our car accident, there was weeks where we had 5 hours of therapies a week, and we
Hmm.
live at least 30 minutes away from each of those appointments. So we we're spending, 10 hours total in driving and in therapies, and it just felt like we had no time to get anything done. And this is where people just go, now's not the right time. But there's never going to be a right time.
Right.
And so what I really hate in the conversation about nervous system regulation is that people think it's about doing less, right? Like, and the thing about our patterns and our subconscious mind and our nervous system is it's highly intelligent. And so when it gets language, like intellectual language, it'll be like, but your nervous system, right? And yes, there are going to be days when you need to rest.
Hmm.
Absolutely. There will be, right? The week immediately following our car accident, when our whiplash was so bad we couldn't turn our heads or lift our son, or, we were in so much pain, we focused on resting,
Hmm.
right? If you're sick, like genuinely fever, sick, rest. But there are other times where if you're really honest with yourself, and this is the uncomfortable piece, you could do something.
Hmm.
It might not be to the perfect level, but you could do still something to move you forward. And that's when the negotiations with comfort are going to come up, where people are like, but I have a good reason not to. And nobody would think that you were wrong for that good reason, right? But at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to have to look back and say, how many times did I negotiate with my comfort and I gave myself a really valid reason for resting? And now I'm at the end of the line and I haven't fulfilled my potential, right?
Hmm.
I read a book, it was probably 10 years ago now, called um, Five Regrets of the Dying, I think is what it's called. And it was an Australian woman who did hospice care.
Mm.
And she shared like the stories of the five people that are the five most common themes that she saw with people that she was caring for in their end of care life. And one of them was like, I wish I had started sooner, right?
Hmm.
Like when you're on your deathbed, all of those justifications for why you didn't take action now, right? And a lot of it is going to be like your fear, your self doubt, your imposter syndrome, your perfectionism, your people pleasing, your unwillingness to like make other people feel uncomfortable because you're too good. It's going to be that dressed up as I'm feeling a little like low capacity today. I've been working really hard. I need a break. Right. And so the question that we always come back to with our clients is this your pattern or is this actually your edge? I was talking to a client the other day and she's like, I tell myself that I'm tired all the time, every day. And the thing is that every single thought that we have causes our
Hmm.
body to release hormones and neurotransmitters. So
Yep.
every single cell in your body is being bathed with every thought that you have. So if you're constantly saying you're tired, your body is going to go, oh, I guess we're tired, right? And so I said to her, so if you're actually tired, like if it's a case of like, I am legitimately exhausted, you're not going to be scrolling social media.
Right.
You're not going to be Netflixing, binging on Netflix or video games or whatever your vice is, right? You're truly going to want sleep
Hmm.
and good food, and you'll make some changes to your rest patterns. But if it's the pattern, you're just going to go, I'm tired as you pick up your phone and start scrolling,
Right.
right?
It's an
So,
excuse.
yeah, is it your pattern or is it your edge? And are you willing to go to the people that you love the most? Or are you willing to go look in the mirror and say, hey, self, we didn't achieve this goal because we just didn't feel like it today. We were too tired. We couldn't think of anything to say, so we just didn't do it.
Hmm.
And when you start putting it in that terms, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not really that tired.
Yeah. I think most people aren't. I think most people like the excuse. I will admit I know my edge. I know where when I'm really good. Like I get up in the morning early because I do really good from 6 a.m., but right around 2, 3 in the afternoon, I want to chill. That's just I want to. Now, can I push through? Have I? Oh yeah, all the time. But a lot of times I set up my week on purpose so I know that on Friday I can do what I want because I got everything checked off. That's where you're talking about the edge. But there's also been times I woke up like I don't feel like doing anything and I still push through because I know all it is that I just don't feel like it and feelings don't get me results. Now, my problem, and I know this, is that I always lean to the edge of doing more. Some people lean to the edge of doing less. And so I have to learn to know, okay, it's good enough. I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm an overdoer. And I think it's just learning your patterns to start with. Because, like, I'll post 30 pieces of content, 40 pieces of content in 3 days. And, like, oh, that's great. But what's the purpose of it? I think that's the other flip side. Because, again,
Yeah,
I'm more with awareness on me. Like, I know how I am how I operate, where I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, it has to be perfect or do this. And I look at them, I'm like, why? And I had to check myself because I'm like, I'm not them. Because you said this earlier and it just is clicking in my head more. We always see everyone through our rose-colored glasses. Why are they treating me this way? What is going on that they don't want me? And 9 times out of 10, they didn't even realize you were there, not because they're mean, but they're stuck in them. And I think it's
yeah,
just learning where you're at in am I doing this because I'm trying to get recognition? Am I trying to do impact? Am I trying to help people? What is the intent behind it? And then owning it. Like I posted today, I saw something from my buddy Austin on The Odyssey, which I went and watched and I liked it, right? All I did was say, it's funny, your haters can fuel your dreams. The Odyssey just hit $1 billion. I got so much hate from it. And at first I got into because and again, I don't care if you like the movie or not. That's not the thing. And I was like, I'm starting to respond because I'm that guy. Like, oh, and I'm getting the things. I'm like, is this serving me to keep responding to these people? I'm not going to change their opinion. I'm not going to change their thought. So after I had done it a little bit, I had that moment because I'm just thinking about, oh, wait, I'm just going to let it be and let them be happy with it or sad with it. And I use something that's not really important. I don't care if the Odyssey made $1 billion or not. It was just the point of your haters will sometimes, fuel your dreams and desires. And it's interesting to me in that regard. And I know I'm on like a big loop there. Um, but I think it's just figuring that out where you're at for the day and what you're doing. And so many high achievers have that issue, I think.
yeah. And the other side of high achievers is the pattern that we call the overdriver, right? So high achievers tend to either be in a collapse phase where it's like, I'm tired, I just don't want to do anything, like that burnout phase where they're like, I'm so burnt out, I don't want to do anything anymore. But the other side of it is the overdriver. And as someone who was an overdriver, I haven't done enough, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more. What I found was that I was also doing a whole lot of stuff that just didn't even matter, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't need to rebuild my website every other week. I
No.
don't need to, somebody reached out to me and they're like, hey, you stopped doing like your moon meditations on YouTube. And I'm like, well, it didn't tie back to literally anything we were doing in the business.
Hmm.
And when I started it, it kind of brought me some joy and some excitement. But now it was just like bringing me stress because it was an expectation.
Hmm.
It didn't lead to anything in the business. It took me time to like do the research and whatnot. And I'm like, it just, there was no intention behind it, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of overdrivers, they become so focused on their worthiness is connected to their productivity, their output, their achievement, their success, whatever it is, that they can't stop,
Yeah,
right? And so that's also where Sid and I are both overdrivers. So when we plan the week, we're like, these things on our to-do list, what do they actually tie back to?
that's good.
And if they don't tie back to either making the business run more in a more automated fashion, making us more money, serving people, or like bringing us joy and time, then it doesn't really need to be on our list, or it definitely doesn't need to be at the top of our list.
Hmm.
So that's the other piece is if you are somebody who chronically burns out because you take on too much, you might be lacking some intentionality around like how does this actually fit into the big picture of what I'm doing?
Hmm. I've learned now, and I definitely been overdriver. I fall into that category for sure. I've learned now to do things that bring me enjoyment that don't even matter to my business. Now, before I wouldn't. I was always like, okay, I'm the top salesperson. I got to always be out grinding, out winning. I'm the top this. I'm the, like, that's just what I would do. Lately, I've been writing fantasy because I just like it. Am I going to share it to the world? Maybe, maybe not. But it's just something I'm having fun with. Like I mentioned, I played video games. I go for what it's I think it's this, and there's a verse in the Bible that everyone goes to, and I think they miss this part. It says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said that's the law and the commandments, which is great. I believe that. I think most people, especially high achievers, don't know how to love themselves. So you can't love your neighbor as yourself because you don't love yourself. And I think that's been the last 3, 4 years I've been going through, like learning to actually love me for me, not for I achieved X, which is a really weird thing.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, like when we really scale it back with overdrivers, high achievers, overachievers, that kind of thing, is that it comes back to they don't know, they don't like themselves. And so they need something external to say, see, I told you I'm good enough.
Hmm.
Or they're chasing the validation of others, thinking that eventually they'll feel good enough and worthy. And the overdriving behavior, the constantly having to be working, can never rest, can never just chill is also linked back to they don't feel comfortable alone. Like it is so uncomfortable for them to be alone with their thoughts. This is why COVID was so hard for people when the lockdowns happened, because people all of a sudden didn't have their vices anymore. They had to be alone with themselves, alone with their thoughts, and that was so deeply uncomfortable. So most people fill their life with so much stuff, right? That or they're so addicted to chaos
Hmm.
that like I know in my overdriver years, which were was the peak of like me not liking who I was as a person, was me like I would literally joke around like hobbies. What's a hobby? What do people do on the weekend when they're not working? Like I didn't know. And even at the beginning of our relationship, like Sid and I would be like, oh, it's except for the Thanksgiving and Christmas. Those were the only two like public holidays we ever acknowledged. We were like, what do you mean like you're taking Labor Day off, right? Like what? And we're like, oh, it's Sunday? I had no idea it was Sunday because we would literally just get up, say like there was one point in our marriage where we were just basically roommates who
Hmm.
slept in the same bed because we'd get up, have breakfast. I would get up before him because I'm an early riser. He's a night owl. So I'd go to my office. He'd get up, come say hi, then go to his office. And then we might have dinner together, or go on date nights, but we would just sit there and work or talk about
Hmm.
work or whatever. And then I'd go to bed, say goodnight and go to bed. And he'd stay up until whatever time. And we just 7 days a week, 365. So, but we both had like such a deep discomfort with being alone with ourselves, with deeper conversations that weren't business focused. And that's the biggest thing with overdrivers is they don't know how to be alone.
Hmm. I think I vibe with that. Like when I first met you, it definitely was more of that. And as I've gone along, I've learned like even stillness practices, which is the hardest thing for me. I'm really good at it now, meaning I can go 10 minutes. I'll go sit by a bench, on a bench. I put my phone down. I set a timer. I'm not allowed to touch it. And I'll just stare at nature. I used to be able to do it for a minute. Then I got up to 10 minutes. But now, because I've done it so much, when I go on walks or any of that type of stuff, I crave it. It's the
Yeah.
weirdest thing because I used to just keep myself so busy, busy, busy. And now I'm like, I need alone time. This is actually like a superpower I didn't know about. So no, I get that.
Yeah. And like even when my husband and I were in that phase, we would go for a walk. We would both have our earbuds in with a podcast going. And for me, I was at the point where I was like, this podcast has to play at 2 times speed. Like I need, right? But
Yep.
then we sit there and we go, why is my nervous system in survival mode? Why do I
Hmm.
have such bad anxiety? And I'm like, because there's never just silence. Like even now, I am a quick processor. And I tell
Hmm.
my clients, if you send me a voice message and you're talking too slow, I am going to speed it up.
Yep.
Thank goodness for that function. But also, I have to like force myself to not put my books. I'm like, the fastest I'm going to let myself put an audiobook on is 1.5 times.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not going to go any faster than that because I don't need like the constant hustle, right? If you find yourself like in the kitchen cleaning and you're like rushing to do nothing, like, or to do the next task that's going to keep you from resting, that's one of the top signs that you are in survival mode.
Hmm. So how do you help people get out of that? Because like I've gone through that phase. I know what it feels like. To the point before you met me, I was working two jobs, drinking crazily. It was about 10 years ago. Almost had a nervous breakdown, like just because I was so not regulated, and I had none of the modalities that I had learned. Like I was a hardcore salesperson, and you drank when you weren't doing sales. Like not a great place to be, and not there anymore, thank God. But I mean, we learned from where we're at. But how do you help people when they're at that place, or is that when they start to raise their hand because they just can't handle it anymore?
Yeah, so most of those people will wait until they're either having the nervous breakdown, their anxiety is so high, they can't sleep, and they know, or like health conditions. Like I have quite a few clients who they've been hospitalized
Mm,
because their survival mode kicks them to that point. And like I also just want to point out before I go into this that your body can be living in survival mode for 13 years or more in some cases before it starts to ask you to pay the tab, right?
mhm,
So it's always funny to me when people are like, "Oh, I'm 25 and like I'm just going to hustle harder." And I'm like, "Yeah, talk to me in like 10, 13 years, right?
mhm.
We'll see where you're at because eventually the body keeps score. That
Yep.
is nobody is so special that that's not going to happen. It's going to happen to David Goggins as well. And,
Mhm.
we've seen races and things that he hasn't been able to finish because of injury. And I'm like, that's where it starts.
Yep.
Right. So I don't wish it on anybody, but I also recognize the reality of things. So for people who their nervous system basically feels so unsafe in rest, in silence, what we have to do there is we have to slowly, we do a technique called titration, where first we teach the nervous system that you're okay without chaos, right? You mentioned Alex Sharfin's, if there's fire in your business, you're probably the arsonist.
Mhm.
This is that's not, I've never heard Alex say that, but that is something I've said to multiple clients. Like
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are great firefighters because they're also the arsonist,
Yeah.
right? They're constantly creating fires just to put them out because they don't know who they would be without it. And if you're listening to this, I want you to know your nervous system was wired to learn what was normal in childhood, specifically the ages of 0 to 7 to maybe about 10-ish. So if you look back on that time and there was like chaos, right? Parents fighting, scarcity, bullying, abuse of any kind, like any of that, right? That's what your nervous system learned was normal. So for me,
Mhm.
it was constant. Well, I had two families. I had a biological dad with a stepmom who abused me, and then my mom and my stepdad, where there was a ton of scarcity. And so chaos has been the norm since my mom conceived for me,
Hmm.
right? And so for so long, like that's what I chased. And when something was going good in my life, I would tell myself, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but then I would like throw the shoe, right? Like
Hmm. Yep.
I would
Yep.
rip the shoe off to let it drop and then be like, see, I told you.
Yeah.
So we have to start to titrate the nervous system first to feel safe without the chaos,
Hmm.
right? To just feel safe in neutrality. And depending on how much chaos the person's had, that can be a little bit of a journey in itself. And then from there, we titrate the nervous system to feel safe in like peace, joy, gratitude. Because
Hmm.
you would be amazed at how many high earning, like I'm talking 50K a month or more entrepreneurs I work with who cannot even tap into the feeling of gratitude.
Hmm.
Like they're just, I'm like, okay, so if you think of something you're grateful for, where do you feel it? I don't know. I can't feel it. Right. Like they're so shut down to it. So first we kind of have to warm the nervous system up to be like, hey, it's safe to not be in chaos for like 30 seconds.
Hmm.
And then, hey, it's safe to like have gratitude for 30 seconds. And then from there, we can start interrupting the patterns. But for some people, we have to back it up a little bit more.
Hmm. No, it makes sense because a lot of, and I know some of the people probably you're talking to, and I know like a lot of high achievers, and a lot of times they just thrive. Like my wife has a friend and she thrives in chaos. If something's going good in her life, she finds something new that can't. And I'm just like, I've to the point finally had to tell my wife, you can't hang out with her anymore. First time in our marriage I've ever said, I said, you can't because it's just causing too much chaos here. And it's been like 6 or 7 months, and there's so much peace. So something I just want to remind you, if you're around someone and they're not willing to change, sometimes you have to protect your peace. Not easy to do. Send them to Tiffany and Sid, they can help them. But sometimes you have to protect your peace because at the end of the day, you don't want to just live in chaos. I don't want to live in chaos. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I was disagreeing with you.
Yeah. Uh, so we're not done, but where can people find you? Because we talked about a lot of stuff. So they're probably like going, hey, where can I find Tiffany and all that?
Yeah, so Tiffany Toombs Clevinger on Facebook, on Instagram, Regulated Entrepreneur Tiffany. Those are my primary two sites right now. We are working on getting our own podcast going. We've just had obviously a chaotic year, as I've shared. So, um, but we do have a show coming out soon, and then a YouTube channel, Regulated Entrepreneur, as well.
Awesome. No, I love that. Now, I know we talked about a lot of stuff, but is there anything that maybe it's been on your heart when you came and said, hey, I'm going to come on this show that you want to leave with our listeners or insight or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say if you're stuck anywhere in your life, there is a pattern at play. And you can hire all the coaches and mentors that you want. You can go out and do every course on every business, marketing, social media strategy. But if the foundation, the pattern that's running those strategies or that's implementing what that mentor says is still there, nothing is going to change, at least for the long term. You might see like glimpses of change, but then come sliding back. So the biggest thing that I want people to realize is what most people do is they'll set a goal, right? Here's my goal. My goal is to have a seven-figure business, and I'll become a seven-figure business owner on the way to building the seven-figure business. But that's actually backwards. The identity is not the byproduct of achieving the goal. It's the other way
Hmm.
around. Who is the version of you that has that future life? And if you don't know, look at, if you're like, I want to build a business like Alex Hormozy, cool. What are the traits and characteristics of Alex Hormozy, right? How does he think? How does he problem solve? How does he make decisions? Just go listen to his podcast. He shares plenty of this,
Hmm.
right? And this is what act as if or like fake it till you make it actually was supposed to mean. It didn't mean go out and rent a Lambo and a mansion for
Hmm.
a day and take a bunch of photos and make people think that you're already
Right.
there,
Right.
right? What it meant was act as if in the moment when your own stuff is coming up, come back to how would Hermosi make this decision? Or
Hmm.
how would, this successful person in whatever area of life, relationships, health, business, etc. How would this other person make this decision? How would they show up? What would they think here? What would they believe here? What step would they take? And then act as if you are them. And when you figure out, okay, here's my goal and here's who I need to become to achieve that goal, putting relentless focus on becoming that person makes the goal a byproduct of your
Hmm.
personal growth. And that's what most people miss is they focus on, you know, I have to take these actions, right? So most people operate from a do have be. I want to be a seven-figure business owner, so I have to do the seven-figure steps. But I can guarantee you that if you're making $20,000 a month, how you do certain steps is going to be completely different to how Alex Ramosi takes those exact same steps,
Hmm.
or how, Tony Robbins or whoever it is takes those steps. In fact, I have an example from my life. In 2023, I pitched Forbes to have my own column, but I was deep in postpartum anxiety and I was in this place where I was like, why would Forbes want me?
Hmm.
Right? That was the pattern that was at play. I have a coach who gave me a template and said, model this for your pitch. And I did. And I did not hear a single thing back from Forbes. 2 years later, I've broken that pattern, right?
Hmm.
I'm back to feeling good. Still have the exact same coach.
Yep.
Pitch Forbes this time, pitch for the exact same column idea, but my pitch was dramatically different than it was in 2023. Same action, but different outcome. I
Hmm.
sent my pitch within 1 hour. They were asking to interview me, and I got my own column.
Hmm.
So, how you take who you are when you take the action determines whether or not you get the goal, not just taking the action. Because if just posting on social media was enough without posting as someone who understands the level of success that's needed, right?
Hmm.
If just doing the activity was enough, more people would be successful. So let yourself chase who you need to become, and the goal will be the byproduct.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. Looking back at life, that totally makes sense because a lot of times we're not ready for the thing we think we want, or if we got there, we wouldn't be able to sustain it because, like you said, our character, who we are, would just get enhanced. So you have to do the inner work first. People don't like to hear it, but it's 100% true. Tiffany, I appreciate you being on the show. For all you listening, share this with someone that you know and take a moment, breathe, and actually become the person you need to be. You don't have to get everything done in the moment. You just have to be aware of who you are, what you're doing, and what you're wanting to accomplish. And until next time, I appreciate each and every one of you. Again, Tiffany, thank you again for being on the show. Have a beautiful